Who's in the room. I'm Jeffrey DeRose. I'm the Business Development Manager at the CSI Tech Incubator. And I think I got, I'm still here. Something is wrong. 1 second, guys.
Awkward silence.
Yeah.
Jeff, we could hear you clearly though.
Yeah, you know what it is? Someone was trying to my friend was using my account, I think, to try to log in. So I was like getting kicked out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yes, the Business Development Manager at CSI Tech Incubator. This is Tech Talks. We're here with Sheena Allen of Capway. Capway is a fintech startup. And Sheena, I'll let you maybe just introduce yourself and what your company is doing.
Yeah, Sheena Allen, founder, CEO of Capway. Capway is a mobile bank in addition to other financial services, including financial literacy. We focus on mainly an audience they're looking for an alternative option outside of traditional banking. So maybe that's you bank with the large bank and you're tired of paying all the fees, or you're in an area where there aren't any banks or fair services to banking for you. And so we want to make sure that everybody starts having fair services and not paying all those fees for the basic necessities of having financial access.
Yeah, that's real. So I personally think like what you're doing is so great and amazing, and it's so necessary for like people in our community. And I guess maybe we just want to start off with, how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I mentioned, high school, I was really deep into the arts, drawing, painting. Went off to college, and I double majored in film and psychology, and I minored in marketing. So I was in my 3 completely different fields at one time. But yeah, so senior year of college, I had this idea for a mobile app. I wasn't in school for anything technical. I had only taken 1 technical class. A friend actually challenged me to take a C++ class, which even in 2010 was an old language compared to the language that we code in now. But I was challenged to take a C++ class, and I hated that class. Like, it was horrible. Yeah. I could not wait till the semester was over with. But wasn't in school for anything technical. I had an idea of my senior year of college. I went to Walmart and had a long receipt when I left. And I was like, I just told my roommate who went with me, I was like, I wish there was an app that I can keep up with my money and my receipts. And she was like, you can't find one? And this is 2011. So the App Store is still very young. I mean, there might have been 200,000 apps in the App Store. Whereas now I think there's like 10 million. So
right.
I was like, I can't find this. I was like, I'm just going to create it myself. And she was like, you're crazy. And I was like, nope, I'm going to like figure out how to create this app. And so the app I was trying to make was I was trying to do away with receipts. So now when you go to like stores, it actually asks you like, do you want to text your receipt? Do you want to print your receipt, or like no receipt? I was trying to do that through an app in 2011. So It didn't work out. But I fell in love with like the process of like just being deep into tech. And I graduated in December of 2011. So this was the app that I did right when I went back in August. And it didn't do well, but I fell in love with technology. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try one more time and see if it'll work out for me. So November, I put out my second app called Words on Pics, which you probably can guess what it did. Just adding words on pictures. And it actually did really well. And so I graduated. My dad was really on my back about going to get a job. He's like, you have 2 degrees. You need to go find a 9-to-5 and have a steady income. And I was like, nope, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And he's like, no, you're going to go make sure you use that degree. And I was like, okay. So I didn't do that, by the way, if you guys haven't figured that out yet. So my dad actually cut me off financially. He was like, well, eventually you're going to need money and you're going to go get a job. And I was like, well, I'm going to figure out this entrepreneurship thing in technology. Being from Mississippi, saying you're going to be a tech entrepreneur is like foreign language.
Yeah.
So I ended up putting a 3rd app out. And it was called Twit Booth. Crazy enough, this was 2012. This was before Twitter added the media tab inside of the official Twitter app.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it out and I got this email from Twitter and they pretty much was just like, you're infringing. Like, I don't know. I kept the email. I still look at it sometimes. Long story short, like I got the email and like a month later, the media tab showed up in the Twitter app.
Wow.
But I did it because Instagram was like becoming really popular, and I was like, I wish like I could just like find people's picture on Twitter the same way I find people like to see pictures only on Instagram. So I was trying to make an Instagram version of Twitter, which I did. Twitter just shut me down, and then they did something else. So that was that.
They shut you down with like they shut you down with a cease and desist, or like how did they shut you down?
Yeah, pretty much. They sent me a nice email. So at first they was like, you have to put by Twitter or for Twitter at the end of the name, because the name of the app was called Twit Booth. And so
Mm-hmm.
they told me I had to like put like for Twitter at the end, which I
Mm-hmm.
did. But then after that, it was another problem. It was like a problem every time until eventually they just put out themselves in their own app.
Yeah.
So there was that.
So they
Um,
technology.
I mean, they didn't steal my technology, I guess technically, but the idea of what I was doing really well. And I eventually, I mean, we were like ranked in the App Store, and yeah, then they came along and added the media tab into the Twitter app. So anyway, past that, I did my fourth app, which was an app called Dublin, and that app did really well. So that was an app that we did like 500,000 downloads in 2 months.
Wow.
And I ended up moving from Mississippi. I moved to San Jose, which is the heart of Silicon Valley, if anybody's ever been to the Valley. Um, Learned extremely a lot while being in the Valley. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that is where every major tech company is. But I actually ended up leaving the Valley. I moved to Austin, built my first company out in Austin. And then 2016 came up with the idea for Capway, stayed with my first company. I pivoted my first company in 2018. So that company, which was the housing of all the apps I had created. So it was a studio lab, app studio lab. I pivoted that company in 2018 to a company now called App It Out, like Map It Out, which
Mm-hmm.
is for people who have ideas, but they're non-technical, or they have an idea for an app, but they have like no clue kind of the next step. They go to App It Out and we walk them through the process. So we either connect them to developers, or we make sure their ideas is good enough or worth, going through. I've seen so many people take their last $5,000 or their last $10,000 and pay for an app, and they get 2 downloads.
Yeah.
Because nobody really has walked them through what it's like to have an app in the app store. So that's what that company does. I do not run the day-to-day operations of that company anymore. I actually have somebody else who's taking over that. And so my 2018, my focus 100% shifted to Capway, which is like I say, providing access to people who don't have the proper access now. So, I think for banking, there's some things that just always has irked me. I came from a community where there's only payday lending and check cashing. There wasn't any banks. And then we're moving to a cashless economy. There's so many restaurants you walk in now that says like no cash, or, you can't pay cash for Spotify and Netflix, which is what millennials and Gen Z is what we do. And even with like Cash App, we saw with COVID-19, where people was getting on like Twitter and Instagram, they was giving out money through like Cash App or PayPal. And I think a lot of people didn't realize that how many people in America didn't have access to either digital tools, or they didn't have a bank account to connect to when using like the PayPal or Venmo. And I think before that I knew it because I grew up in that community, but COVID-19, in my opinion, truly exposed the economic inequality in America. And this is something that we already were working on, and we just have amplified it now due to COVID.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I'm curious to know, because kind of you had a couple apps built out. Were any of them ever like VC backed, or were you able to get any funding for any of your companies? Can you speak to that?
Oh, so my first company I bootstrapped. And my second company, of course, Capway, we're VC backed. So I've been on both sides of it. I've had a company that I've built from scratch that I bootstrapped. I had to reinvest every dollar that I made. And then of course, with Capway, as I mentioned, we've raised 2 rounds of funding, going into our 3rd round of funding. So I've been on both sides. I can tell you the pros and cons of each.
Yeah. I mean, for the crowd out there, I think that's actually good information to know, the pros and cons of each.
Yeah, so bootstrapping, you're in pretty much you are in charge of your direction. You know, if it takes you 3 months, if it takes you 3 years, it's your money. You have to answer to yourself. You're responsible for how your company does. So every month I didn't have to answer to anybody but me. I didn't have to send an email with your VC-backed. You have investors and they want their money back and they want it back times 10. And so every month now I send an investor update. I have to update them on the process. I have to send them analytics. They know how the company is doing. I have to keep up my cap table. When I was bootstrapped, I didn't have to answer to anybody but myself. The positives of bootstrapping also is that your company is your company, meaning that you own your company. When you take money from investors, whether they're venture capitalists, whether they're angel investors, once you start taking money for your company becomes less of your company, because every single check that you receive, you're giving equity for that check.
Mhm.
And so many times you see people who take 2 or 3 big rounds of funding and they look up and they own 20% of their own company, 10% of their own company, and or they get to the point where they don't even have enough voting rights to stay within their company. I know we all know the infamous story of Steve Jobs with
I was just
Apple.
thinking that. I
You
was
know,
just
they voted him out of Apple. He wasn't always with Apple. He was there. He was still the cocky guy with the vision that, you know, at one time they thought it was too much. And back when it was the Macintosh computers, you know, the board voted him out, and then of course they brought him back. But that has happened numerous times. So when you take money, you have to understand that you are giving up equity for every check that you take. So you got to be very careful. If somebody gives you $1 million, you got to make that $1 million go as long as possible, or you got to get really great revenue, really great traction. Because if you want to raise that next round, you want to make sure you're raising a higher valuation, that you're not killing yourself in equity. Once again, if you bootstrap, that is your money. That is your company. You own 100%, unless you have a co-founder and you're 50-50 or 60-40 or whatever. But you're not giving up equity. There's not the difference in, even if you're bootstrapping and you and your co-founder own 50-50 or whatever, you know that you're working something that's yours. A lot of entrepreneurs that I know, they built this company, this great company, and they get so discouraged because they look at their cap table and it's like, as an entrepreneur, especially if you're the CEO, you're the one up at 2 a.m. You're the one up at 3 a.m. You're the one taking all the meetings. You're the one trying to make sure your sales are getting done. And you may own 10% of your company. So you got 90% of people who put in money to help you get there, but they're sitting at home every day. You're
yeah,
doing busting your butt at 2 o'clock in the morning and you don't even own your company.
yeah.
That has happened a lot. So I tell people, if at all possible, bootstrap your company as long as possible. If I could never take money, I would never take money. But with Capway, especially when there are certain industries you can't get out of not taking VC money. Banking is a highly regulated industry. You can't even get too far in banking unless you're raising VC funds. Telehealth is just another example. When you're in a highly regulated industry, you're going to have to take money because you really can't do anything. It takes $1 million sometimes in telehealth to even get past probably some of the regulatory pieces of it. So it really depends on what industry that you're in. But if you can avoid it and or get as much traction as possible and then go and raise money, because then the ball's in your court.
Yeah, yeah. That's something that I'm always advising like early stage entrepreneurs to do as well. People just think like, hey, I'm going to go out and build this company. I'm going to go out and raise money from VCs. And they don't even realize, even if someone gives you $1 million check, $500,000 check, usually that check has to go to something. It's not even going to your pocket. Maybe you get to pay yourself a little salary, but that's a real thing. And that's a great point you brought up. And I think another interesting perspective is that you have successfully raised money from investors twice. And what has that journey been like, not just as a person of color, but as a woman of color? I could imagine that's extremely challenging.
Beyond. So numbers show that women of color raise less than 1% of VC dollars. Less than 1%. Not even we don't even have a whole 1%. It's less than 1%. And I think women in general, I want to say is 4%.
Mhm.
which is absolutely ridiculous when you think about it. 4% goes to women, less than 1% goes to women of color. The issue that you find most, I would say 9% of our money comes from Silicon Valley. We have few investors outside the Valley, but 95% of our money comes from the Valley. The issue that you have in the Valley, though, is your investors, your general partners, they're going to be male. They're probably going to be an older white male. And what I've seen, especially with women, including myself, I would say three things that come top of mind when I talk about the struggles of raising money as a woman, and especially as a woman of color. The first issue that you have is most men don't understand, especially if a woman is in an industry that's more sort of targeted towards women. So you got to think about it. If I'm doing hair and I'm walking to this boardroom of 50 and 60-year-old white males, and I'm talking about this great product I'm using for technology to do hair, they can't. I mean, what we talk about pattern matching a lot in the VC world and investing. Exactly what pattern are we following when I'm talking about hair? They're like 60-year-old white guys. Like, I mean, there's nothing to pattern match. But what I do tell people, what I tell all women all the time though, is find an angle that they can relate to, that they can take back to their kids or to their wife. Candace Mitchell, who's here in Atlanta, one of her investors was Chris Sacca before he left Shark Tank, before he got out of the investing world. And he told this story. I can't think of the conference that's in New Orleans, but he told this story on stage, and I actually know Candace. And the story was Candace told him about this company. What Candace does, she allows you to take a picture on your phone, and the technology that she has actually will look at your hair and recommend products. It's amazing technology. And she pitched to Chris Sacca, and he just thought, this was this young Black girl with this really great technology. It was a really cool idea. I think he wrote her a check for like $50,000 or something, like $100,000, which is still good because the average Black woman only raises $33,000. But I think she challenged him, which was like, ask your wife, like, how much money does she spend on her hair? Like when she goes to the beauty salon, like, how much does your wife spend? And I want to say, like in his interview, he said he thought his wife was spending like $50, $100, like at the at the hair salon when she was getting like all this stuff done. And he goes home and like he asked his wife, like, how you going? You get like your hair colored and you're getting extensions and clip-ins and all, like, how much money are you spending? And I want to say he said something like, she told him like $300, $400, and he had like no clue that women spent that much money, like when it came to hair. And he ended up going back and investing more into Candace's company. But it took her challenging him to say, ask your wife, about hair. And that made a difference. So that's one thing I tell women, is try to find a way to relate to somebody within their family, usually a wife, a mother, a daughter, because they're not going to get it themselves. The second thing, which has been a big issue, but I think honestly, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, is a lot of people outside the Valley themselves, they have ideas, but they're probably ideas that relate to more of real world problems. And you have to understand the problems of the Valley is not the problems of people outside the Valley. So an example would be, in the Valley, their biggest problem is we got to figure out how to make this car drive by itself. We're going to invest $50 million into this company because we got to figure out how to make the car be a self-driving car. Like, that's what we're going to invest $50 million into. Or we got to figure out how to make this drone drop this Amazon package off at your doorstep, within 24 hours. That's what they're going to put $50 million into. If somebody came and they're like, I'm trying to fix, economic inequality. I'm trying to fix the fact that kids in America go hungry every night. I'm trying to fix the fact, so I'm sure all of us here can talk about real world problems. That's not what they see as real world problems. And so that's another big issue. And the third thing, I think people have to really understand, when for VCs and VC-backed companies, they don't really tell you this, but I'm going to say it. They don't expect you to be profitable. Most VC-backed companies are not profitable. Uber is not profitable. Lyft is not profitable. Like, most VC-backed companies are not profitable, and they're not meant to be profitable. They're meant to dump all this money into. They're meant to eventually find somebody. You're going to get all this traction, and then you're going to sell, and then the VCs or the early investors are going to walk away with some money because PayPal bought you for $4 billion like they did Honey, or it's kind of like the game. And so most VC companies, back companies, are not profitable. If you look at the companies that we all know today, the Ubers, the Lyfts, just name them, most of them are not profitable. And so if you have a company that is almost meant to be profitable, your unit economics says, I'm going to, be making money, they're probably going to look at you more of a lifestyle company versus I'm going to give you this money as the VC-backed company, which you still can do that, but you'll probably need to go through angels and not venture capitalists, because they do have two different expectations at the end.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. And that's to add on to the idea. Even a company like Amazon, I think Amazon only became profitable like 3 or 4 years ago. Amazon is literally, I mean, now they're like $1 trillion company, but like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they're maybe like a $200 billion company, $300 billion company. And they were never profitable. They were never profitable until a couple of years ago. So that's very real. Like, like not just in the VC land, but even when companies go as far as going public and trading in the stock market, a lot of these tech companies are not profitable at all. And
we saw WeWork, the infamous WeWork story. I mean, people didn't realize how bad it was with WeWork, but once you go public, your financials become public, and it's like, wait, they're not making any money? Like, they're in the red? Like, yes.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. And so like maybe just going back to Capway, I think the work that you're doing is very important for the Unbanked. And how have you been able to successfully begin tackling this market? I think this has been a big challenge for maybe the last 20, 30, 40 years, for minority communities. So I'm sure there were a lot of people who tried to do this, but it seems like you've really gotten traction, and you seem like you're successfully tackling the market in some way. So like, what do you think that you did that's a little bit unique to actually get to that point?
Without question, I knew the market.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't a thing that, I was sitting in my dorm or I was researching ideas and it was like, hey, the unbanked market is a $2 billion market, which is actually way more than that. American millennials itself is almost a $50 billion market for unbanked. Worldwide is almost $1 trillion market. But a lot of times when people have gone into this market, into this field, it's because they see that it is a problem and they see that there's a huge market opportunity for that problem. But if there's anybody, in this chat who has come from a lower to moderate income community or came from a rural area or lived in a banking desert or whose parents have lived or themselves have lived paycheck to paycheck, people on the outside never can truly understand what that's like. And so when you have someone who was probably born with the golden spoon in their mouth and they've never experienced a problem, they're trying to build a solution based off of research. And I would argue with anybody, there are just certain things done that if you've never experienced it, you trying to build a solution for it, it would just never, ever work. So, I've driven my grandmother to a check cashing place. I grew up in a city where there was only one local bank and it was a credit union that nobody used. So it's for me, it wasn't a case of, oh, well, let me research it and let me, go talk to some people who are unbanked. No, like this was my sister. Like I know how she thinks. I know why she's unbanked. I understand why somebody would, go to the check cashing place versus having a bank account. And I've had those subjects those topics come up before where people will say, well, why don't this person get a bank account? Why would they pay $20 to get their check cash? And I had to explain if I'm already living paycheck to paycheck, it makes sense for me to go pay $20 to get my check cash because when my cash runs out, I'm broke and I'm just done. If I have a bank account, especially with the larger banks, if I run out of money and I'm still using my card, I'm being charged $35 overdraft fee every time I swipe their card to try to keep up. Versus if I'm cash, like once I'm out, I'm out. I have to figure out, where it goes from there. So it just understand the market, understand the people makes a heck of a difference. So I think that's number one. And number two, I always tell people, great companies, there's a combination of knowledge, execution, and timing. So
Mhm.
knowledge we had, execution is when I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's part of execution. But timing is, we've always spoken about unbanked. As you mentioned, this has been, people have been trying to tackle this for the last 30, 40 years. But the timing of it is, now we're going to a cashless economy. So now, as I mentioned earlier, millennials on their phone every day trying to do Amazon Prime, Spotify, Netflix. You have COVID that just happened, where you try to have the government send out stimulus checks, and all of a sudden they're like, wait, 1 in 4 Americans don't have bank accounts. Like, how the heck am I supposed to get Americans, a stimulus check? So timing is on our side. So in my opinion, it takes those 3 things to have a successful company. And thankfully we have all 3.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And okay, time check. We're at 7 o'clock. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And another question, right? So since your business is a little bit more socially conscious, I think sometimes we think that like building a business that's going to help the community, there's not too much money in that. Do you find it challenging generating revenues, or do you actually find it that like, hey, this is so in demand, even though I'm helping the community, like generating income from it isn't even hard at all?
Well, social impact companies actually usually have a high return of money. Most people don't know that. Like, they give investors back more money than regular companies. There was an article that was done on that maybe late last year that talked about how much return social impact companies give. However, I will say, when I'm pitching to investors and when I'm going through this company, I rarely actually speak to the social impact side first. Now, I do speak to it, but I had learned very quickly, when you're pitching, investors want to know, how are you going to make money? What is your business model? And how are you going to make our money back, pretty much. So early on, I would pitch and I would lead it by saying, hey, I'm from Terry, Mississippi. I'm from a banking desert. I know what it's like not having access to banking. I want to help X amount of people, and the market is this size. And that's great if you're pitching a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
We're a for-profit. So
Yeah.
I learned that I had to switch my pitch. And instead, I go in now with numbers. Now I go in and say, hey, 1 in 4 American households is unbanked, or, 46% of millennials are considered financially underserved. 78% of people in America live paycheck to paycheck. And then I started laying out numbers, which then leads to my business model, which leads to my market size, which leads to the problem, to the solution. And I end it with saying, and the reason the reason I'm the person to solve this is because of X.
Mm-hmm.
Then it doesn't, I'm talking like I'm a for-profit company. So you can be a social impact company. You can be a for-profit social impact company. You just have to lead with business first.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. That's great. And it sounds like you really understand your market and what is needed by that market. That's obviously why you're where you are today. Can you speak a little bit to the solution that you actually built? What is your actual product that is helping people become banked, go from underbanked to having a bank account?
Yeah, so Capway it's a mobile bank. You can download our app or go to our website, capway.co. Um, so right now, what we focus on is mainly financial literacy. It's a big part of what we do, and it's not your typical financial literacy. It doesn't even come off as financial literacy at all. It's I call it social finance. It's more of a conversation. It's more about like, hey, what do you have going on? Did you know that X existed? Did you know that, hey, instead of buying, 5 pair of Nikes, you can buy 7 shares of Nike for the same amount of money? So the conversation is totally different. As I mentioned, we're a bank, so we have debit cards. Right now we focus on checking and savings. Like some of the other maybe neo banks that you know of, we no overdraft, so we do no overdraft fees, no minimum balance fees, which is one of my biggest issues with big banks, is the fact they charge people minimum balance fees if they don't already have money in their account. So why would you charge them a fee to push them into overdraft? But that's another subject. So no minimum balance fees, no overdraft fees. We do a very creative way of savings, but even when you're able to save within the Capway app, we allow you to create goals. So maybe you have a goal of $400 for a new computer. As you're saving up your change and trying to reach that goal, you can ask for help from the community in reaching your goal. So you can maybe tweet it out. You can, text it to a friend, you can email and say, hey, I'm trying to reach this goal. Would you be willing to put in $20? And that $20 will go directly into that goal for you. So the community piece to it. First of next year, we'll be adding business banking.
Mm-hmm.
So minorities are we get it. We know how to definitely go in and start a company, but want to make it much easier for minorities to be able to start companies and properly file their business, make sure they get the EIN number, make sure they have a business bank account, so they're not using their personal and their personal account for the personal and business. They actually have them separate. And then we'll get into micro lending. So we have a few things coming up, but like right now we focus on checking and savings. And say we have some channels outside of just the debit cards. And the main one we have right now is financial literacy.
Oh, wow. So just to throw this out there, I know that the whole banking Black movement. So, if anybody that wants to support a Black-owned bank, we could literally support you, right? We could download your app, sign up, and start depositing. That's great. That's great. And I guess just last question. I know you got to get out of here by 7:30. Last question before we open it up for Q&A. I know you guys are in growth mode. So how has it been like expanding into new markets, growing a team, as you're saying now, expanding services? I'm sure it's just a different mindset. Like, when you're just in scale mode, like you're really in growth mode right now. So maybe could you speak to that?
Pay attention to your numbers. That's what we do. And that would be my advice to everybody. I think the one thing, and I learned from my first company, the unfortunate thing that a lot of people do is they look at just like, oh, I got 100 downloads, or, I got 10 new accounts, people that sign up for accounts. When you're scaling and you're growing, the most important thing you can do is pay attention to your numbers. Go to your analytics. What's your retention rate? What page people stay on the most? What page people click out of the fastest? If they're using their accounts, how much money are they spending? What's the average, amount they're spending? What's the average amount they're depositing? If they're using financial literacy, do they go through the whole program? If not, do they stop at the program? Am I working with directly to the consumer, or am I looking at analytics from a B2B versus a B2C? Mm-hmm. So from a scaling of the company itself is numbers. Look at your numbers. Know your unit economics. From a team perspective, we're small, but my team is amazing. I will put them up against anybody. And I say that because what's super important when you have a team is that they love that product, that service as much as you do as a founder. So I know I'm up at 2 a.m., but my team's probably up at 2 a.m. too. It's not because I'm asking them to be quite honest. It's because they believe in the product just as much as I do. And that's super, super important. And most founders will probably tell you, you might lose a touch of that a little bit once you get past 50 employees. Sometimes 50 to 100 employees, but we're below that number right now. So making sure that everybody I bring on board loves it just as much as I do. They're willing to put in their blood, sweat, and tears the same way I am.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So thank you for, coming and joining us today. I just want to actually just open up the floor to questions from the crowd. If anybody has any questions for Sheena, it's not every day we get to meet such a entrepreneur of caliber, especially one that's a woman of color. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can drop a question in the chat. Actually, I'm seeing there's 3 chats. Okay. Nia says, truly amazing that you've been navigating this space. Black girl magic. That's great. So yeah, any questions from the crowd for Sheena? We have George raising his hand. Okay, George, you could unmute yourself and ask, or if you want, you could type your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, great. First and foremost, congratulations. Your work ethic is truly inspiring.
Thank you.
I guess the question I had is, number one, you had mentioned twice that, we're turning into sort of an online economy where, a lot of money is being spent online, such as Spotify, et cetera. So I was wondering why, well, I guess not why, but what was your decision to sort of focus on banking as opposed to possibly banking and cryptocurrency? Is that something that you're considering? Have you the reasons that you thought of not doing that?
Yeah, so we get the cryptocurrency question a lot, actually. A
Yeah,
few,
because the timing was interesting because it was about 2 years ago when you had mentioned you had started, right?
Yep. My lead engineer is really deep into crypto. Before he came to Capway, he was doing a crypto startup actually. So two things with crypto of the reason that we didn't go that route first. One is I would, my opinion, I think that America is not, it has not been very quick to adapt to crypto. Um, you even look at Facebook. I mean, they've been trying to push their crypto thing for what now? 2 years, maybe something like that. And it just has not necessarily worked out. I think that if I was in Nigeria or Ghana or even maybe India, I would say, hey, let's jump in with crypto. I just think that America, we are the traditional financial system of America runs very deep. And because it runs so deep, to come in and do crypto, it's not going to be easy. Like I said, we've seen that with the whole, Facebook. I can't remember what Facebook's was called.
Libra.
Yeah, but they've still been trying to push that. The second reason we didn't do crypto was because you have to understand that some parts of our audience are new to digital. And so you're pretty much like jumping a step and taking them to crypto, and they don't even understand the basics of finance and money. So to jump that step, in the end, I would have done a disservice to the people that we were serving. Now, if it's somebody in New York, if somebody might be in Miami, somebody in LA, they know crypto, they read about it, and that's cool. But you have a kid who was going into the digital world because he's from, rural Alabama. And it's not that he's dumb, it's that he hasn't been exposed to it. So therefore, I'm taking him a step, and he's going to miss something along the way. And I knew that I would be doing a disservice if I did that. So I had to start at step one if I truly want to stick to the mission of making people financially healthy. Jumping around I'm not going to be able to achieve that.
That's a great answer. Okay. Nia has a question. What has been your anchor and North Star throughout this process?
Woo. Let me tell you, this is a process too. Because there's a lot of days you want to throw the towel in and be like, what am I doing? If for everyone in the group chat who has not started a company, you're going into entrepreneurship, you are crazy. I tell everybody, entrepreneurs are crazy. You have to be crazy to want to do this. There's no sane person that will call themselves an entrepreneur. Because a sane person is like, I'm just going to get a 9 to 5 and punch a clock and get my money and go home. Only insane people is like, I'm going to build this idea from the ground up and step at 2 o'clock in the morning to figure it out. For me, there's been a few things. Before COVID, I would take trips to any place of water. I'm a Pisces, so water calms me. So I love large bodies of water. I'm an avid reader. I read every morning. Really, really big on reading. Exercising, but I'm not consistent with it. I exercise for a good 2 months, and then I don't know what happens for the next 2 months. It just doesn't go as planned. And then I would say family and friends. And when I people that I call friends, or I have a lot of business acquaintances, I have a lot of business friends. My friends are friends I've had since second grade. Like those are the ones I've known for 20 years, 25 years. And the reason I say that, they're big on this process is because, for one, they keep me grounded. My nephew, it's funny, this quick story, my nephew, even today, I was on a call and it was on speakerphone, and he could hear it. I just got back in town. I was in Mississippi, and he could hear my call this morning, and he goes, "Why do he talk to you like that? Like, you just Sheena." Like, kids will come, like kids and old people will humble you very quickly. But my friends and my family, they're super supportive. They're going to tweet everything, retweet everything. They're going to post everything. But in the same sense, they make sure my feet stay on the ground. And that is super, super important. So Little few things, reading, bodies of water, exercising, but great support system.
That's great. That's great. You know, and I guess I'm gonna ask a question because you brought up like, you know, I guess like your family not getting you being an entrepreneur in the beginning. How was that for you? Like, you know, like when you were at a place of, you know, just being small and not having anything accomplished yet, and you're like, hey, like, I don't care what you guys think, I'm gonna do this. I personally go through this. Even until today, my mom still tells me to get a job. And I'm like, I don't need a job.
Um, think about it. To this day, my dad could not tell you what I do. Like, he
Same.
couldn't tell you to save his life. If somebody says, what does your child do? I don't know. She's an entrepreneur. That's probably the only thing he would say. He couldn't tell you to save his life what I actually do. I think for one, especially when it comes to parents, regardless of the relationship that you have with your parents, parents by instinct are just very protective. And the protective thing to do is to have a steady income. That's just very safe, it's very protective. And so when my dad financially cut me off, I knew he didn't cut me off because he didn't love me. He cut me off because he was trying to prove a point that if you run out of money, you're eventually going to go get a job because you're going to need money. So I think it's more of a protection piece that, you know, we go through. And whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, whether it's a stranger who tells your idea is stupid, only you see your vision. Like no one is ever going to see it like you. I don't care if your first hire, it might not be your first investor. Nobody sees the vision that you see. You used Amazon as an example earlier. A lot of people know the story of Amazon, that a lot of investors was pulling out of Amazon, you know, 15, 20 years ago. Because it was like, what is this guy doing? Like it's never, and he would always tell people like, this is where I'm going to go. If you ever watch a Steve Jobs movie, he will always say, this is where I'm taking it. Nobody's going to believe and see what you see though. Like it's up to you to just go through all the noise.
That's real. That's real. Nalaya asked, or Nayla, sorry, I hope I didn't pronounce your name wrong. What books have you read regarding your personal development growth as a business leader?
I'm gonna say I've read it as far as like being a business leader. I've read some really great business books. I'm the 1% I've read. As far as growing a company, probably one of my favorite books in growing a company has been Hacking Growth. I thought it was amazing to see how some of the bigger companies was hacking growth, like when it was really, really small.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a good book. And then because of what I do with Capway, I've read books like The Unbanking of America, which is a really great book. The Color of Money, probably one of the best books I've read. Super long. The book is like like this, but really, really great book. So I have a mixture of books, whether it's something that's dealing with the industry that I'm in, whether it's dealing with a business leader or just business growth. So it's a mixture for me.
Okay. I'm just maybe we can answer it really quickly because we do have another question. What is The Color of Money about?
So The Color of Money it's pretty much from slavery all the way to now, and it talks about the why, the what of why minorities have the issues that we have when it comes to finances. And so one part that stands out that I'll talk about is in the book she speaks of people of color not having assets, and she goes really deep into the fact that Black people used to be assets. So when I say that, you had slave owners who would say, I have these 3 Negroes, and those 3 Negroes got him, you know, a loan from the bank. Like literally Black people were assets. Mm-hmm. And we have not truly made the bridge of the gapping to saying now we're going to own assets. And she breaks down everything in between, whether that's redlining, whether that's, you know, everything that has to happen in between of trying to be going from an asset to owning assets. And it's an amazing book, and it really shines light on the systematic issues that we have, and you know, the fact that we've, as far as being Black people, we've created a lot, we haven't owned, which has always been a big issue. And sometimes because it was stolen from us, it wasn't because we didn't want to own it. You know, we all know the story of like the Jack Daniels, you know, with the alcohol, and some of a lot of stories that we know of. But it's an amazing, amazing book. And it was actually written by Marissa. I can't think of her last name. But it's an amazing. Honestly, for anybody of any color, it's an amazing book to read.
Yeah, I'll look into that. All right, so the last two questions, and I'll let you go. Question from Ismail: do you have any suggestions for someone looking to raise funds from family and friends?
If so, family and friends, what they call the family and friends round, is a privilege. So if you can raise it, take
Yeah.
advantage. I would suggest that if you raise family and friends round and you plan to raise from VCs or angels in the long run, I would suggest raising from family and friends on a safe, not a convertible note, which is, some people say the same, but it's not. If you're going to raise from family and friends, I suggest you raise on a safe. And I say that because usually when you raise from family and friends, not everyone is going to be an accredited investor. And you're going to have those SEC issues that's going to come up once you start trying to combine people who are not accredited with actual accredited investors. So probably one of the best instruments for family and friends is going to be a safe, and you would determine the cap on that, whether you cap it at 1 million, whether you cap it. So you're not actually valuing your company. That's the beauty of a safe. You don't value your company, but you can put a value cap on your safe.
And what is the safe? Just so for the people out there who don't know.
It stands for simple and future equity. So it's a way that technically you own 100% of your company. That safe might say that, hey, this person will own 4% once, we convert over for a price round. But you actually keep all of your equity until it is time to convert that over, which that's why people could get confused with a convertible note, but it is different. But for family and friends or super very early fundraising, I would suggest a safe. And you can find a safe template through YC, Y Combinator. They kind of birthed the whole safe thing, or making it popular, let me say that. So you can actually go to their website and download a safe agreement template.
Okay, and the last question: what was your biggest success and failure as an entrepreneur, and what did you learn from each?
I thought the failure, because I learned from failures way more than I learned from being successful. And on that note, just quickly, when you guys are looking for mentors, one of the biggest mistakes that early entrepreneurs make is they always want to seek out successful entrepreneurs. It's like, tell me your story, teach me. You will actually learn way more if you're talking to entrepreneurs who have failed, because they're going to give you much better advice. Because somebody successful is going to be like, oh, I did this and you should just do this. And their pathway is not going to necessarily work for you in your pathway. But someone who has failed can at least say, hey, don't do this, because I did it and I ended up spending 10x my money because I didn't know, whatever. One of my biggest failures for me was, I would say, actually not know my numbers, my first company. Even though I bootstrapped it, when I started speaking to people, I wasn't like, I didn't know my numbers the way that I should have. And also when you're pitching, and I won't call it failure, but a big learning lesson is that when you're pitching to someone, even if it's not an official pitch, anytime you're telling somebody about your company, it is a pitch. And I had to learn that. So you're talking to the random guy in the elevator about your company, you're thinking like, I'm just, talking to this guy about my company. He could be an investor. His dad could be an investor. His cousin could be an investor. Especially when you're in that type of environment, you never know who knows who. Will probably be one of the biggest lessons outside of pitching. The way that I was pitching my company, I had to learn. I was failing at pitching. And my first major, my first real mentor in Austin, he was a white guy who had sold his company for like $60 million. Josh at the time was 34, 35, and I was 25. He took me on his wing, and I will never forget in Austin, one day he tells me, pitch, like out of nowhere. He just tells pitch your company. And I might have been, I wouldn't say 60 seconds into pitching my company. And he was like, stop, it sucks. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you pitch like a girl. And like, I didn't really take it offensive, but I was like, how do I know? What do you mean I pitched like a girl? And this was coming from a white male who had sold his company for, millions of dollars. And he says, the problem with women, when you all pitch, you pitch like women. And he said, when I say that, you pitch to me like you need me. And I said, I mean, but I do need the money. He's like, I don't need to know that you need my money. He said, when white men walk into this room and pitch to me, they pitch to me as if they're doing me a favor. He said, and then I want to listen, because I'm thinking like, well, if they don't really need me, they must be doing something amazing that I might want to be a part of this. And he said, but women, you all pitch like you actually need me. And then because you need me, I'm not interested. He says, it's like dating. When somebody's chasing you, you just make them chase you because they want you. He's like, but when you like somebody and they not really into you, you end up chasing them. And I never thought about it that way. And I changed the way that I pitched. So I started pitching like, this is great. Either you want to be a part of it or you don't. But either way, we're going to be successful. So that was probably I would say a failure, probably I was failing at pitching. Biggest successes were probably for my first company with the app Dublin. When we did the 500,000 downloads in 2 months, which skyrocketed us into eventually building a studio lab where we did about 6 million downloads, completely bootstrapped. It was profitable. Definitely a big part of the success that got me to where I am now.
Oh, that's great. George says he appreciates the genuine answer and he respects it. So I maybe just want to wrap it up. I want to tell you thank you again so much, Sheena, for taking the time out to come and speak to our group. And for all of you guys at home, is it okay, Sheena, if I share your contact info? If somebody wants to maybe follow up with you, ask you a question, connect with you on LinkedIn, that's okay?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So thank you everybody for joining us today. And it's Jeff from the CSI Tech Incubator. I think this was a great event, and I don't know if you have any closing remarks, Sheena, that you maybe want to say before we go.
What I usually close out with when I talk to entrepreneurs, which is don't work on proving anybody wrong. We all got that person in our life that's told us it's not going to work, do something else, whatever. And a lot of us get caught into being on this mindset of like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I'm going to prove her wrong. And if you do that, you end up going down the wrong path, because now you're going down the path of trying to prove somebody else wrong. Make sure you stay on the path of just proving yourself right, because then all the noise is not there. It's like, I know my vision. I'm proving myself right. I don't care what anybody else says. But if you try to prove somebody else wrong, it's going to go wrong. Trust me. Because now your thought process and your mindset and why you're doing it has switched. If the reason you're doing it, you know why, and you're going to prove yourself right. So that's my biggest thing. I'll leave with that. Don't work to prove anybody else wrong. Just work to prove yourself right. Okay, excellent. And just before you go, you're getting so many thank yous. Thank you from Jasmine. Thank you from Nyla. Thank you from Janet, Lori, Muhammad, Peace. Everyone's loving your talk today. So I think, we had a nice group and you were impactful. So thank you so much. And to everybody, have a great night and have a great weekend. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks.